How realistic is it to make your living as a bounty hunter? Hi, Larry Kay with ShadowAnyone.com and the creator of the Investigator's Ultimate Guide series, premium private investigator training from someone who's been there and done that. Bounty hunting is a glamorous looking thing on television. It seems like a fun thing, and honestly, if it's in your system to hunt humans, you know what? There's a catch and release program there that really might have an appeal to you. And I don't blame you at all for that. I see the attraction to it. Let me tell you a little bit about the behind the scenes things. I am by no means an expert bounty hunter. It's not something that I do regularly. It's not something that I desire to do. It is something that I have done, and so I have a little bit of insight for you. Number one, a lot of bounty hunting, and I would say most bounty hunting, is done by the bondsman or his agents themselves. The idea is that they show up for court. That's how a bondsman makes his money. If they don't show up, he's going to lose the whole thing. And so the general rule of thumb is he's going to pay the bounty hunter 10% of what the whole thing is to bring this person back so that the bondsman himself doesn't have to forfeit the entire amount. So by definition, you've got a fail that the person didn't show up. That's a fail right there for the business side of things. And now you're just trying to recoup. You're just trying not to lose too much money is really what it comes down to. The bondsman, the person who made bail for this person, is just trying not to lose too much money at the point that a bounty hunter comes into play. Again, a lot of bondsmen use their own agents, and it depends. State law varies on who can do this. In my state, it can only be done by the bondsman himself, a law enforcement officer, commissioned police officer, or a licensed private investigator, and that's why I've done it. Because when this law first kicked into effect, there was a real scramble. These guys, bondsmen couldn't use their typical guerrillas that they sent out, and they just scurried to find private investigators like myself who were willing to do this. And so I did it for a little while. Did not like it, but not for the reason you might think. So here's where it comes down to answering the question: is it a realistic way to make a living? I really don't think so. And the reason is, it's not that these people who skip out on, say, a $50,000 bond, so you're looking to get $5,000 to pick them up and bring them in. Yeah, that's probably worth it. But look, you're not going to go out by yourself for this. You're going to bring someone with you that you're going to have to pay. There's liability. You want to make sure you have the right insurance to cover this type of thing. It takes time. Now granted, you can work a lot of hours to make $5,000 and still have a pretty good hourly rate come out of it, right? But it is work. It is, and sometimes very unattractive work, sitting, waiting, that type of thing. And you don't get to keep the full $5,000 after you pay taxes and expenses, the gasoline for your vehicle, and again, paying somebody to come out with you, the database searches that you might have to use. You're not going to get to keep that full $5,000. And again, of course, I mentioned it, but taxes will take a huge bite out of that, really offsetting even more what it's worth. Here's the tricky thing, though, in my experience. I don't know how widespread this is. You know me. I'm the first person, if I don't know something, I'll tell you I don't know something. There's plenty of things I'm a stone cold expert in the private investigation world. Bounty hunting is not one of them. I can just tell you based on my experience. And here's the tricky thing. There are a lot of people out there who have skipped out on very low-level bonds. And the typical example I'm going to give you, because I had to deal with them, was drunk drivers, people who just don't show up to court for drunk driving charges. And in fact, 10% is so low that the bondsman I'm working with paid more than that. And he said, well, for these guys, I'll give you a flat $100 a piece for every one you bring in. That's not worth it to me. That's not worth my time. If you think about it, I mean, if you're working, let me throw some numbers out to you. If you're working surveillance, if you charge $65 an hour for surveillance with a 3-hour minimum, that's bucking right up against $200. I kind of joke, I don't answer my phone for less than $200. So I'm not taking little piddly cases, right? So a surveillance, for example, is a minimum of about $200 that I'm going to charge the person. Again, I don't get to keep it. I got to put gas in the tank like everybody else. I have to pay insurance and those types of things. But that's more in the range that I'm looking at. For this guy to say he's going to give me a third of that to find this person, to track them down, to go sit on wherever they might be until they show up, to lay hands on them and bring them in, go down to county lockup and turn them in, to do all of that for $100, there is no way. There is no way. It's just not going to happen, in my view. So, money and bounty hunting, I don't see it personally as a very lucrative way to make a living. You may know someone who's doing differently. I think a lot of the people that are glamorized for doing bounty hunting are the bondsmen themselves, and they're really making their money off of the many, many more people that do show up for their court date than the very few that skip out. That's my view on it. Please leave a comment. Let me know if you have some experience in this or any other perspective on it. Everybody would be interested to know. This is Larry K with ShadowAnyone.com. Remember, do the right thing, even if it's the hard thing.